my name is Becky and I'm with Beckinka. I'm going to talk to you today about how to wrap a stone using additional strings that can either then finish off a necklace or a bracelet. So I start off, here I have a labradorite stone and I'm using Lynn Hasita waxed polyester string. I take 2 cords that are pretty long, like I would say arm's length from one side to the other. And then I tie them to 2 other strings. One of the things I'd mentioned is I kind of tie them in the middle so that there's strings coming out on both sides. This makes it easier to use in the actual necklace or bracelet. And what I'm doing is I'm just starting very similar to what I was doing in a different video, where I'm literally just taking the strings and I am tying them going in one direction and then tying them back in the other direction. So I'm taking the strings in the middle and I'm kind of going in one direction and then I'm coming back the other direction, just like so. So the only strings that I am knotting are the ones that are in the middle. I should have 2 in the middle and 2 on the outside. The outside strings are going to stay still, and I am knotting in one direction and coming back the other. So as I'm doing my wrap, I want to periodically check to make sure that my wrap is going to go evenly around my string. If that's looking great, I'm going to go ahead and continue. Now, because I have the correct distance with both of my 2 outside guiding cords, I'm going to add a string. And all I do to add a string is I just put the string in between or at the end of the wrap, and then I'm going to knot on one side and come back on the other side and do the same. So I'm doing the same knotting, but now what I'm going to do is I'm adding a string in each time. So once again, essentially every time I make an X on my with my strings, I put a string through, and then I'm going to knot both ways to kind of hold it in place. So you can see here I'm going on both sides and knotting back and forth. And I'm going to take the string that I added in, and now I'm going to pull it up. Okay, and now I'm going to make the same X. Knotting back and forth again. And as you can see, the strings are now coming out of this wrap that's going to end up coming around the stone. As you can see here, I'm just continuing the same pattern here, going back and forth. And I'm periodically taking it off. As you can see, all the strings are coming from this wrap, and now I'm going to make sure that the front and back of the wrap are actually going to wrap around this stone well, so that I'm not making it too big or too small compared to the stone. Now that my stone has been, or my wrap is completely finished and it's long enough to wrap completely around my stone, what I'm going to do is start knotting the 2 sides together. So I'm going to knot the 2 sides on the front together, as such, in a double knot. And I want to keep it really taut because that's going to make sure that my wrap doesn't fall off my stone. And I'll do the same on the back. Now, one of the things I was going to mention is that sometimes the knots get a little loosened, so I can go back and kind of take them out, and then double knot again to make sure both sides are completely knotted and strong. So the great thing about wrapping this stone in this way is that I don't need any glue, I don't need any wire, and it's very strong. And I want to make sure that the wrap is not going to come off the stone. And so that's what I'm kind of doing here, is just making sure that that wrap is completely around the stone and taut. And once I have done that, I'm going to start building a stronger kind of line around the stone to make sure that all of the strings that are coming out are in some form of knot. And that's going to make sure that none of the strings start coming out. So as you can see here, everything is wrapped and I am ready to begin. So the way I do this is I knot the front string to the back string, and then I'm going to knot those two together. And this is going to make sure everything looks very seamless. That's the goal of this, is to make sure everything looks very seamless. So I'm knotting the two strings together at the very top, and I'm going to kind of tuck in some of those shorter strings. So now once I'm done with this wrap, what I'm going to do is start knotting around the stone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the strings and I'm going to kind of tie them, and then I'm going to essentially knot around the stone. And I'm going to take the same 3 strings that I began with, and I'm going to knot now around the stone, being careful to make sure I'm knotting in order and that the strings are at full length and are in half before I knot them. One of the things I like to do is make sure I'm doing this with a stone on its back, so that it makes it easier to make a clean knots. And all I'm doing is I'm double knotting and going in the same direction. Now I'm going to do the same going from the other side, making sure that all of my knots are firm against the stone. As you can see, I'm just continuing. I'm using the same strings. I'm taking each string in order and double knotting around the stone. I'm going to continue doing this until the stone is completely wrapped and both sides have the same amount of strings on each side. So I generally count on each side to make sure I have the same amount of strings, both starting from the top and going to the bottom. And once I notice that I have the same amount of strings, I'm going to go ahead and tie those 2 bottom strings together as such. And this one I usually use one of those, the long string, and I'm going to wrap it around twice around those 3 strings on the other side so that I have a complete circle here. All right, so now that my wrap is totally complete, I want to make sure that everything is even. I want to make sure that all of my knots are going evenly around the stone. And as you can see, I have a strong wrap that now I can use to either make a necklace or bracelet. And I can, if I was going to make a bracelet here, I can just knot on both sides of the stone and continue out with whatever pattern I'd like. We have a variety of Linhasita colors in our shop at beckinka.com. So we also have stones as well. So check it out at beckinka.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. Thank you so much. And don't forget to subscribe.